It's bizarre to think that just 4 decades ago there would have been no female students at this dining hall, nor indeed anywhere else in this college. And in 40 years we've gone from that to having a celebration of the great women who not only achieved great academic distinction at Queen's, but went on to achieve remarkable things in life. We're off to meet some of them right now. Right, arriving at Queen's, not many women on site at the time. How strange was it?
Well, I hadn't realised that this was the first year that the college was going mixed, so it was a real shock. I had been at a northern comprehensive school, so I was used to
Boys.
used to boys. I used to a co-ed education, but it was a bit of a surprise when I realised there were only 15 female undergrads.
Wow, and 40 years ago, what was the mood at Queen's in general? And were women greeted with, well, maybe a mixture of curiosity, and was there any hostility, any resentment?
I didn't notice it, but maybe I just wasn't kind of looking out for it.
The rugby team was going to be ruined, we'd never be head of the river again, that kind of nonsense?
I mean, I've heard about that since, but I didn't realise that was what was going on in the background, because we were just novelties and treated really well, and I also think that we had a good sisterhood. The 15 of us all got to know each other and supported each other quite a lot.
So, one of the first women at Queen's, quite shocking to think that it was only 40 years ago. What did it feel like at the time? Did it feel like you had stormed some sort of ancient male bastion?
It was a mixed feeling, certainly for me, because I, first of all, felt that they'd made a mistake and that they would sort of turn round, after day one of term and say, sorry, we didn't actually mean you to come and study physiological sciences. So with that in mind, I just thought, well, just make the most of it and just see what happens. And I think to a great extent, people were actually very welcoming. I think we were a really weird novelty, these women doing other things. But generally were very positive and helpful in explaining all sorts of aspects of college life.
Was there more curiosity
I
than
think so.
hostility?
I think we were a bit, as I say, novelty and a bit weird, a bit odd. I know others possibly had a slightly more difficult time than I did, but I found it actually reasonably okay.
Jane, Oxford interviews, entrance interviews are legendary. What do you remember about yours?
Well, I walked into my Oxford interview with Professor P. Rabbit, feeling quite intimidated, and he looked at me and he said, well, Miss Bailey, your grandfather studied PhD physics here at Queen's and your father did PhD physics here at Queen's. Why do you want to study psychology? And I was absolutely floored. I didn't know what to say. For the rest of the interview, he looked utterly bored, and I thought, well, that's obviously the end of it. And then at the very end, he said, so do you have any questions? And I said, yes, I do, actually. And he looked really resigned. He'd been playing with something throughout the interview, running something through his fingers, and I said, what are those? And he perked up. He said, oh, they're worry beads. And he began telling me all about his recent holiday in Greece. And I think that's the moment when I got into Queen's. So I realised then that it wasn't just about having to try and impress and be clever, but about engaging and thinking and being interested in things. And that was really what Oxford meant to me.
Alison, you read PPE like me, a very popular subject here. Tell me about rocking up at Queen's all that time ago.
Well, it was the 1970s, quite an interesting time, of course. And I was from the furthest reaches of Cumbria that you can get. So I'm from Workington, which is right on the coast, good steel town. Fiercely independent, refused to let my mum and dad bring me down to Oxford. So determinedly came all that way on train, 360 miles on the train. Didn't arrive at the college because I went straight to Iffley Road Annex where I was to stay. And of course realised I hadn't got a key to get in. I had no way of getting in. So I had to hammer on the windows. And the person who let me in was my very good friend, even today, Stefan, who let me in, gave me a lovely cup of tea, and then took me back up to college.
And you never looked back?
I never looked back, but I was the most miserable girl in the world when I first arrived, because if you recall, Guto, 1979 was the year of a hell of a lot of strikes.
Yeah.
So
Winter of discontent.
my trunk was on Birmingham Station for 3 weeks of an 8-week term. So I had no sheets, no kettle, nothing. So everybody pitched in and lent me things and gave me towels and all the things that I didn't have. Because the trunk was with British Rail's strike in Birmingham.
So they did pitch in. So they were
did.
pretty
People
friendly.
were lovely. People were really,
Even
really
at a time when
lovely.
women were a bit of a novelty, or was that part of the... did that help?
I think it was a bit of a novelty as well, that I was a girl who was there, and a girl who was trying to find her feet and trying to be very independent, but it had all gone horribly wrong.
What has Queen's meant to you throughout life after leaving?
I think I associate it with happiness. I'd gone through school practically 2 years younger than most people in my class, and so it had been an academic struggle. And due to having not got in, by the time I got here, I just knew how to study, and I partied all the way through my finals. I knew just how much I had to study, and then I'd stop and go and party. I just had it sussed. And I've never had life sussed again to quite the same extent. So I was very, very happy.
What do you think has stayed with you, and what does Queen's mean to you today?
I think Queen's, I still feel a very strong connection to Queen's. I'm fortunate to have some very close friends still from my time at Queen's. I think the college does a great job at keeping in touch with us, putting on events. It's been great being involved in the 40-year celebrations, and really remembering what it was like to be here. But I think in terms of what it's done for me, it certainly gave me a lot of confidence. Certainly, the sort of skills that you learn in terms of research analysis, what I was talking about with tutorials, having to think on your feet and put together coherent arguments, those were really valuable in a sort of business life and dealing with the unexpected at work.
Is there anything particular you miss about Queen's? Part of the buildings, maybe? Little corner? Something that stayed with you?
Well, I used to go and pretend to revise in the Nuns' Garden with the smell of wisteria all around me, and I loved that. I don't think I got very much studying done, but those memories stuck with me.
Does it feel, and did it feel, a little weird to be somewhere so privileged? I mean, I remember being overwhelmed by the simple beauty of Queen's.
Beautiful. It's stunningly beautiful.
Yeah.
Queen's is one of the most beautiful colleges. It is absolutely gorgeous. And on a sunny day, the stone is absolutely vibrant against a blue sky. It's really, really lovely. Very beautiful environment, very privileged environment to be in. But I think it's really fascinating. I'm the granddaughter of miners, that I could be here in such a fantastic place. My grandparents, finished school at the age of 13 or whatever, So actually, yeah, it is beautiful, but the people who are here are still very grounded.
Was it a happy time?
Happy time. Oh, I think lots of happy times. I think very much all the social events, getting together. I actually particularly liked having quite a lot of males around. I mean, I came from a comprehensive which was mixed, so it wasn't quite such an extreme experience. And I felt rather special because of that. And so very much for example, the beer cellar Friday evenings.
Still there.
That was really lovely. That was great. And I have many fond memories of that, and I know many of my colleagues have that as well.
What do you remember about the ethos of Queen's, the sort of life at Queen's from 4 decades ago?
It was very friendly as a college. I think that we sort of fell into groups of friendships quite quickly. I was in the rowing crew, and so we got to know each other very well that way. We were quite lucky because we had a friend who had a room in backquards, so we could sort of go off to dinner together and sort of sit and drink coffee afterwards. So this sense of being very friendly. I come from a comprehensive mixed school, so I was used to there being boys around. That sort of didn't feel that different. It was clearly a different place, and it was clearly a special place, and I think we all felt very privileged to be there.
Any other memories, a favourite spot, a favourite season, a favourite practice, that trumpet call to dinner, any of those things stand out decades on?
I remember when we used to play pétanque on the front lawn of the college, rolling the balls along, and just thinking this is idyllic, and how lucky we were to be here.
It was this mixture of a sort of fun environment, down-to-earth friendly, but with these really curious customs.
What do you say is the ethos of Queen, and what is the enduring ethos of Queen's?
Okay. Well, for me, it's a Northerners college. I don't really necessarily have any connections with the North, but because it's a down-to-earth college, from how people interacted to the food, to just the way that everything wasn't taken with all the college traditions and the Oxford traditions, and I found that really quite grounding and quite positive. And I know a lot of us even tried to copy the Northern accents from some of our colleagues, and that was great fun. I think we were laughed at when we tried that, but it was just an attempt to try and integrate. But it felt very friendly and very welcoming, and that's the overriding feeling I have of Queen's.
What does it mean to you today?
Something that's given me huge confidence in terms of what have happened in my subsequent career. I don't feel too worried or put off by going into a room full of men. I don't really sort of notice that side of things at all, whereas I know others might have found that a little bit more daunting. So it's just that. It's that self-confidence that is always behind you, that supports you in whatever walk of life or whatever career that you actually choose.
Queen's, at last, this summer will have its first female provost. How important is that, do you think?
I think it's fantastic for women to see other women in leadership roles. I think that was perhaps one of the things that was difficult for us when we were young at the beginning of our careers, that there weren't so many role models. I think we had a female Prime Minister at the time, but that's a whole other debate. But seeing
and now.
yes, and now, but seeing a woman provost and more people in senior leadership positions, is a great example, and hopefully, she'll be a great provost.
Fantastic. Enjoyed the dinner tonight.
Thank you very much.
These days at Queen's there are women studying virtually every subject at virtually every level. But what is wonderful about this exhibition is to show the wealth of talent over 4 decades that have gone on into different fields, achieving great things across the board. And so, however controversial, whatever the doubts 40 years ago, letting in women to Queen's was clearly the right decision.